Alright you guys, I imported this new game console from Japan. It's called the PlayStation. Die-hard game fans said it was better than the 3DO and maybe even the Atari Jaguar. So, what do you think? Guys? Hello? Released exclusively in Japan in January of 1995, Cosmic Race is a 3D hovercraft racer. I guess. Well, whatever it is, it's widely regarded as one of the worst PlayStation games ever released. To give you some idea of how much hate this game gets, 90s American magazine Game Players actually rated it as the single worst game of all time, and afterward used it as the lowest point in its review scale. A game scored at 20% was branded as heinous, 10% was putrid, and 0% was Cosmic Race. Yikes. Alright, so Cosmic Race doesn't make a great first impression. In fact, your first experience with it will probably involve sinking into the ground and struggling helplessly until time runs out. What's going on there? Well, it turns out that if, like a rational person, you held the X button on the PlayStation's controller thinking that would make you accelerate and peel away from the starting grid, you've already lost at Cosmic Race. The X button actually lowers your craft's altitude, and if you hold it down, you're going to crash and burn. So, after a restart or two, you figure out that the accelerator is mapped to the R1 shoulder button. Fine, great, whatever. You're ready to race this time, and you're building up speed. You approach the first turn and... Whoa, what happened? Does this thing not have a rudder or something? Pressing left or right on the D-pad doesn't seem to change your aircraft's direction at all. What gives? This is the kind of thing you'll constantly struggle with in Cosmic Race, a game where a shoulder button accelerates and you steer your ship using the PlayStation controller's face buttons. Cosmic Race is controlled primarily with your right hand. R1 accelerates and square and circle steer you left and right. You only use the D-pad to make tight turns. Once you figure out how the game controls, it doesn't get any better. It can often take you a while to mentally process what's going on in Cosmic Race at any given moment, thanks to its low frame rate and blocky textures that just seem to pop in and out as they please. It reminds me of the amateur games that would later be created using the Net Yarose, a stripped-down PlayStation development kit marketed to hobbyists in 1997. In fact, many Net Yarose games I've played are way better than Cosmic Race, and those games had to fit within a file size of 2 megabytes. That's practically nothing compared to the full CD-ROM's worth of space Cosmic Race had to work with. Cosmic Race's biggest problem, though, is that it's just not at all exciting. See, Cosmic Race contains 4 worlds, each of which sprawls across a large and mostly empty map. These maps contain several point-to-point race courses that take way longer to complete than you'd expect, and you need to finish them all in first place before you can unlock the next world. You can't just take the most direct route in between checkpoints either. During races, you'll have to stick to a highlighted flight path at all times. If you stray from the path, a timer at the top of the screen will begin to count down. If the counter reaches 0, it's game over. Even better, if you stray too far from the flight path, it'll disappear from view, and you probably won't be able to find it again before the timer runs out. You'll be ready to quit playing Cosmic Race forever after, 2, maybe 3 of these races? To unlock the second world, you need to take first place in 7 courses throughout the first world. I'll admit that I don't have the patience to play that much Cosmic Race at the moment. Maybe someday. Until then, the only way I'm seeing the other worlds is by letting the demo loop at the title screen. In addition to its standard racing mode, Cosmic Race also has Point Time Try mode, which challenges you to collect icons scattered throughout one of the game's giant maps as quickly as possible. You don't have to stick to a flight path in this mode, but there's another problem. It's really boring! The icons don't pop into view until you're right on top of them, and it can be really hard to track them down with the radar you're given. I mean, why do you have 2 waypoint indicators? Even basic navigation mechanics are super obtuse for no good reason. There's also a couple of 2-player modes. Chase mode is a simple combination of follow the leader and tag, where 2 players take turns chasing one another. The bad controls make this fun for both players. Then there's Scramble Mode, which is just a split-screen 2-player version of Point Time Try mode. Fantastic. The frame rate really takes a nosedive in this mode. Look at that texture pop in, it's ridiculous. Cosmic Race's colorful aesthetic is about the only halfway good thing it has going for it, and even that's kinda dull and lifeless. Sony's Jumping Flash would later do a much better job of establishing a similar sort of gameplay world, and it made better use of its limited polygonal textures. By the way, according to an unsourced internet legend, every graphical texture in Cosmic Race was supposedly stolen directly from the default sample textures in the PlayStation's developer library. The player avatars are the only original art in the game, which... what? Seriously? What's wrong with that guy? So, where does Cosmic Race fit in with PlayStation history? Well, nowhere, really. It was developed by a company called NeoRex, which still exists today if you can believe it. These days, NeoRex is known for its successful buy-buy time card business software in Japan, but not so much for its video games. Cosmic Race was apparently the first and last game NeoRex released before it abandoned the gaming industry altogether and returned to business software development. NeoRex, by the way, is a portmanteau that somehow stands for Needs Originality Expansive. Don't ask me what that means. Now, a business software developer suddenly jumping into the world of video games might seem unusual nowadays, but it's not without precedent. Like Nintendo's Famicom before it, Sony's PlayStation hardware had such great promise at the time that it attracted developers who had no prior experience creating games. During the Famicom era, this led to Japanese book and film publishers like Pony Canyon and Tokuma Shoten outsourcing development as cheaply as possible. That's how we ended up with terrible games like Super Pitfall and the NES version of Ghostbusters. Like Cosmic Race, these look like actual video games on the surface, but if you try to play them, you'll quickly find out that the people making them had no idea of what they were doing. But they were so cheap to make that you could pump out a whole bunch at once and sell them to kids who didn't know any better, so who cares, right? Cosmic Race set a really low bar to clear for other first-time developers. Controls, playability, original art assets, who needs them? With only a minimum amount of effort, you too can release your own PlayStation game if you just believe hard enough. It'll be quite a while before we cover another game that's nearly as bad as this one. I guess if nothing else, pretty much every game released for the PlayStation after this can at least say that it's not as bad as Cosmic Race. Whew, so that's one of the more infamous PlayStation games out of the way. Next time we'll look at the PS1's 1994 launch in Japan with Gokujo Parodius Deluxe Pack, a shoot-'em-up compilation from Konami. We've got even stranger stuff on the horizon, so be sure to subscribe if you want to keep track of everything we're covering, and support us on Patreon if you want to see new episodes early. See you soon!